Hi, my name is Kristin Constable, and I'm a leadership and business coach to values-driven entrepreneurs that want to lead wildly successful, values-driven businesses and live rich and fulfilling values-driven lives. And this channel is all about how to activate your inner leader so you can do just that. So today's video is a really important one, and one that's part of a series around overcoming limiting barriers and beliefs that hold you back. And if you are like any of my clients and myself, you have your own unique limiting barriers and beliefs that get in the way of you living from and leading from your full potential. So what I'm going to do in this video series is break down 4 of the top limiting barriers and beliefs that I come across in my work. And I'm going to give you the same practices and tools that I give to my coaching clients to help you break free of these yourself. So if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, make sure that you do that. Hit the little bell so you get notified whenever a new video comes out, and keep an eye out for the rest of the videos in this series, because I promise you, if you take them on, they will be game-changing. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about these inner saboteurs and how they hold us back. So all of us, whether we are at the top of our game or feeling really challenged, have these inner critics to some degree or the other. So it's not about abolishing them completely, it's about recognizing that they're there and being in the driver's seat with them, as opposed to these inner critics actually driving your behavior or holding you back. So before we even dive into what some of these inner critics are and how to work with them, I would love to know what awareness you already have around that inner voice that sometimes holds you back. So if you have one of these inner critics that you're clear on, put it in the comments below, and part of that is naming it and claiming it, and the other part of that is sharing, because it helps when we see other people's, because often we can see those inner critics in ourselves. So once you've done that, though, I want to talk about one inner critic that shows up for almost every single human across the board. Now, Shirzad Chamine in Positive Intelligence, a great book around inner saboteurs, talks about one inner saboteur specifically that he's named the judge. Now, the judge is this inner critic that looks at ourselves, so it turns inwards and looks at ourselves, but also looks at others and circumstances and situations in a really judgmental way, like good and bad. And the idea around this saboteur and why it's present for almost every single person is that as humans, we're actually hardwired to have this inner critic. It's helped us to survive in the past and to get to where we are, because it's enabled us to look at our surroundings and our people and our communities from a place of, is this safe or is this not? Now, that is helpful if it is used in a way that we're actually using it. But if that inner saboteur or inner critic is using us, it holds us back from being able to show up powerfully in our work, or take on new challenges, or take on relationships in a really powerful way, because it's constantly looking at the world through this lens of, is this good or is this bad? Now, how do you get over this? So it's fine to have this awareness, but how do you actually change this from being something that is a positive or a negative thing to something that's a positive thing? Well, the first stage of any behavior change is awareness. So my tip for you around awareness goes back to subject-object theory in psychology. When we can subjectify something as outside of ourselves, it becomes a lot easier to name it, to identify it, and see it as something that is unique from us. When it's attached to us, then it's hard to really see the characteristics or how it impacts us. So your first practice is to really look at that voice, those patterns, ways of thinking and behaving that show up for you, and start to subjectify those as in using names. So it could be the judge. That might be one that comes up for you. One that I've identified for myself is the rigid quality controller. So this person who needs lots of control and needs to make sure everything is perfect. And when I look at that outside of myself, it's easy to identify it when it shows up. So that is your first step here, is take some time to identify what your inner critic voices sound like and look like, and give them a name. All right, so let's talk about what to do once you have some awareness around what these annoying little voices are all about, and also how they've served you in the past. So that's part of that work in stage 1, is to identify them and look at how they've served you in the past. Once you're there, now you get to be in choice. This is a really important part around the coaching model, as awareness isn't enough. We now need to look at, well, what choices do I have? The best way to really get in choice around moving forward differently is looking at the costs versus the benefits of this inner critic. So what are the costs that come along with being the judge, being the rigid quality controller, whatever it is that this inner critic that you've come up with? Look at the costs that it has on your life, on your relationships, and the way that you're able to show up in the world. And then look at the benefits. And as I said, most of these saboteurs are there for a reason. They've served us in some way. So I honor those, identify them. And that is a really great way to see what is. From that place, you'll be able to powerfully say thanks, but no thanks to the ones that are not serving you anymore. So that is your work, is looking at what are those inner critics, what are those inner voices, look at the cost and the benefit so that you can choose a new way. So once you're ready to choose a new way, now is your time to kind of activate the thing that you want to bring more into the world, the quality that you want to bring more into the world, who you want to be known for. Now this part takes a little bit of work, and if you're not clear on it yet, it's all good. In this video, I'm going to share with you a link to a future self visualization that can help you really tap into the type of energy that you want to choose instead. So just like we did subject object with the inner critics, we want to do subject object with who we actually want to be. So this is the alternative, the being in choice around who we want to show up as in the world, a new way of being to activate. So don't forget to download the audio to that future self visualization after you've watched this video, so you can start tapping into and being in choice around what you want to cultivate instead of these inner critic, inner saboteur voices. So the final tip that I want to leave you with around how to break free of these inner saboteurs is around action. So again, awareness without action is useless. So it's good to start to get to know your inner saboteurs, but then you need to do something with it. So one of the best tools I have here around getting into action comes from habit research, and it's the idea of an if-then cue. If-then cues are brilliant because they take kind of the thinking out of things. It's almost like this trigger: if this happens, then I do this. So the idea around how to apply this to this work is, if my inner saboteur of the rigid quality controller comes up, then I take a moment to acknowledge that saboteur, say thank you, and choose my new way instead. So a really helpful way to remind yourself about this or your new way is through something that I call an anchor. So an anchor is something that you can see, feel, or touch that can kind of bring you back or anchor you back to your new way. So for me, I wear a necklace, and having that necklace is a reminder about my new way. Okay, so let's recap. We've talked about a lot. So how do you take this work to break free of these limiting beliefs around these inner critics or inner saboteurs? So we talked about 3 things. First, getting to know your inner saboteurs and awareness around what's actually there. Second, getting into choice around what the alternatives are and how they've actually served you in the past, these inner critics or inner saboteurs. Have they served you, and what choice are you making now? Because we're always in choice and we always get to choose and re-choose. The third piece is around getting into action. So it's not just enough to have an awareness and be in choice, we actually have to do something about it. And so this is where the if-then cue comes into place, and you can remind yourself about that if-then cue through the use of an anchor. So now you get to download that future self visualization using the link below this video, and get to actually dig into that choice piece around, if you're saying no to these saboteurs, what are you saying yes to? This is a really fun part, so don't miss out on that. So before we go, I would love to know, what is one saboteur that you've identified that gets in the way of you leading that wildly successful business or living that rich and fulfilling values-driven life? Put it in the comments below, because remember, just naming it is the first step to getting into action here. So you're already taking a first step by doing that. So put it in the comments below. And also, if you know anyone that would like this video or get something out of it, be sure to share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe, because there's more videos coming in this series around limiting barriers and beliefs and how to break free of them. It is such important work, because you can have the biggest, most aspirational goals, but if you don't work on your mindset and your beliefs, they will not actualize. So see you back here next time for the next video in this series. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later.